introduction to Satish. Thank you very much, Bhavani, for joining us for this session, for agreeing to be part of the Chief Auditor Series. Summer Audit brings this Chief Auditor Series, along with Satish. We discussed and we said we should have Chief Auditors come in and speak, so that we discuss, we talk about some aspects of life, some aspects of internal audit, some technical stuff, some non-technical stuff, which will benefit the internal audit fraternity at large. Because, internal audit is growing, gaining a lot of importance, and we have a lot of internal auditors joining the profession, and also established internal auditors across the world. And this series would really go a long way in helping everybody. So words of wisdom from all experienced chief auditors from around the world. And not only chief auditors, we also plan to bring in regulators, academics who will come in and speak about internal audit, about the profession. So I'll formally introduce our chief auditor for today, Bhavani Jois. She co-heads the internal audit and SOX function at Infosys Ltd. She played a key role in driving transformation in internal audit through automation, analytics, and elevating the position of the internal audit team as value-adding business partner. She jointly led Infosys to win the Institute of Internal Auditors India National Excellence Award in 2018, 2019, 2021. She is an active board of governor of IA India Bangalore chapter, was also the president of the chapter for the financial year 2021. She recently pivoted from a full-time corporate life to a part-time role as co-head and has embarked on a journey as an executive and leadership coach and trainer with a vision to partner with the leaders, aspiring leaders and members of the internal audit fraternity in India and globally on their individual and collective journey to personal and professional fulfillment through coaching and power skills training. So I think this session will be one of those sessions where you can, impart knowledge to auditors. Prior to Infosys, she was director at Deloitte, India's internal audit practice, having worked previously in the UK for 15 years, including as director of risk and assurance at Cancer Research UK, UK's largest NGO, where she was responsible for leading the internal audit, risk management, and health and safety functions. I think it's important to note here because in UK, HSE, health and safety for hospitals, is very important. Definitely. In fact, they used to follow the earlier Australian, British, risk management system. Bhavani has over 24 years of professional experience, regular speaker on interpersonal and human aspects of internal audit and risk management, as well as the technical aspects. And in addition, leveraging her experience as an NLP practitioner, neural linguistic programming practitioner, she also speaks on topics of resilience, self-management, and leadership that has been tailored to address the increasing psychological challenges faced by professionals operating in today's disruptive business landscape. Quite a handful. And of course, she used to earlier play the violin, which I learned from the LinkedIn post which she put in. So over to you, Bhavani.
Thank you so much, Deepji, and thank you, Satish, for having me today. I put something together. Let me share my slides and let me then take you through that and see how it goes from there. Let me just do this. 1 second. Right. Are my slides visible?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Visible in full screen mode?
Yes, full screen.
Yes, please.
Okay, fantastic. So I normally title these, quite specific, but this time it's my reflections because I think this is a story of several years of being in this profession, which I want to share. And some of my learnings, I think I put 7 or 8 key learnings in my journey, which I think is absolutely relevant, might help the fraternity if I reflect on those. So why I started with this slide is because this is the fact that we're all grappling with. The internal audit talent market has gone crazy, literally. If you see what the expectations are, if you look at the profiles, there are hundreds of people applying, but somehow there's a mismatch between the demand for differentiated skills, the available budgets, the expected salaries, the boundaryless of working that today people are expecting. People are leaving for full-time work from home kind of jobs. Companies are not tailoring for that yet. Employees are not sure what they really want. And I think the ask for social and mental well-being is also becoming a big ask nowadays. So both the internal audit practitioners and the internal audit leaders are actually going through a different kind of transformation on how to mix and match and expectations in order to build their fraternity within the organization and outside. So, and I start with this because in all of this craziness, what tends to happen is we keep chasing our tail. We keep looking at what others are doing and we keep going after something that actually may or may not make sense. I see people studying certificate after certificate, hoping it'll make a difference. I see people, being very, looking at what somebody else is achieving and thinking, oh my God, I'm behind here and what do I do? Expecting that the path somebody else took is going to be their answer to their nirvana state of a great job and everything else. But that's actually not at all possible. Because people with 3 years experience are commanding the salary of a 10-year experienced CA. It's you can't make sense of it unless you look at the whole thing differently. And that's kind of why I've been doing a bit of thinking on while a lot of this may be relevant to any sector, I think our sector is going through a very fast transformation, faster than I've ever seen in the last 24 years. So on that note, there is a question about what are the bigger questions in life. In coaching, I've come to learn there is no concept of work and life, because everything that underpins your performance at work comes from self, and so does your life goals and life achievements. And underpinning all of that are your sets of values, beliefs, and systems, mental systems, which you can't segregate. This is how I'm going to be at work, and this is how I'm going to be at home. It's not possible. So I think amidst the craziness, we have to ask some important questions about where we are going as individuals. And those questions take the form, for me, some very simple questions are, what makes you happy? I was watching a video yesterday from Marshall Goldsmith, in which he says, they asked a group of parents, what is it you would like for your child to be when they grow up? And all those parents collectively answered, to be happy. Now, and then he said, you want your parents to be happy, you want your children to be happy. He says, start with yourself. You can't raise happy children if you are not happy, right? And I think that applies to us in the fraternity. Amidst the confusion, amidst the kind of chasing better prospects, we need to ask ourselves what makes us happy, and how do you know you've made it? Because if you're looking at somebody else's path, and you will never be able to succeed, because the moment you get there, something else is appearing ahead of you. So that's important to know how do you know you've got there, and how do you go from good to great? You're all good. We've all kind of come to some point of our careers, but we've kind of having to make the next step. And so what is that next step? And it's very important. And I'll come to another slide that I have about how we have so limited resources. And how do you know where to put your resources? At the end of the day, can you go to sleep saying, I spent my day's resources well in advancement of my career, right? So that's a question that we should all be asking ourselves before chasing multiple certifications, multiple of course, lifelong learning is important. I have a slide on that too, but we have to be conscious about how much learning we are doing, how much chasing we are doing. So coming to how I want to structure this presentation, I have gone back to my first year as a manager in internal audit, and I've pulled out some key learnings that I have, gone through. I'm still work in progress, and I'll be very candid. I'm never going to be reaching there. I think everybody is work in progress, but there are lessons I have learned in life which I think can help. And the first thing is about transition to manager. Okay, because I think a lot of people work really hard. They get told what to do, how to do, they're guided, and suddenly they get promoted to manager. And in 2005, January is when I got promoted to a manager in internal audit. I basically entered the profession thanks to Sarbanes-Oxley. Many people don't thank Sarbanes-Oxley, but I do, because for 6.5 years, I was in statutory audit. I found it okay, but it wasn't kind of, giving me that buzz and that rush. And then all the big fours were hiring in bunch. I mean, they were like literally bringing people from South Africa and everywhere because of Sarbanes-Oxley. And this was the UK days. And so I got an opportunity to go into Deloitte as a manager, as an assistant manager. 6 months later, having done really well, I got promoted. And suddenly everything I knew as an assistant manager and all the years I built up to manager was absolutely irrelevant. Because this white sheet of paper is a significance. I literally felt I was handed a white sheet of paper and told to do work. As a manager, you don't have much to fall back on. There was no past precedent. I was taken to a TV channel and said, do their risk register. I have no clue. I mean, I had that time had no clue how to write a risk register to begin with. Forget about a TV channel in the UK, right? So I made lots of mistakes, did a lot of screw ups, ended up having gone from exceeds expectations. I closed the year, my first year as manager, as met expectations. And that year, my partner called me and said, it's a bigger disappointment when your outstanding people become met, because it's fine when a met stays met. But when an outstanding becomes met, something fundamentally is wrong, either in the way we have managed this transition or your own attitude to this change, right? And I never forget that conversation, one-on-one, sitting with that partner as he was giving me that rating. And therefore, I say that you need to know how to manage your transitions. And you need to know to expect the unknown. You need to know to expect nothing. And that you actually are starting from zero up. And therefore, what interventions do you need in order to manage this transition successfully is the first lesson I learned in life. Now, coming to the second transition, we need to ask for what we need and want. We are as human beings, we are very hesitant to ask for support and ask for help. And that was the mistake I made in my first year. I thought I should do this myself. I was an outstanding performer. How do I go from this outstanding performer, and how can I ask for help now all of a sudden? It looks odd. So I didn't ask for help. I had a not so great year, but having learned from those opportunities, and I'm now fast forwarding to 2009. I had a good fortune of getting a secondment as head of audit after coming back from a maternity break. So this was my second maternity break. I came back and there was an opportunity to work for this large NGO as a secondee head of audit. And I did that. And for 6 months, they were looking for a head of audit as a permanent resource. And I was thinking, and they were not hiring. So my contract kept getting extended because they had not hiring. I'm like, maybe I should just say I want it, right? So here's finding that confidence to ask for what you want. If you feel you've earned it, if you feel you've gotten to that place, then just ask for it. And of course, as luck would have it, I got it. I got that position, which is how I became the head of audit, a permanent head of audit of risk and assurance at Cancer Research UK. Of course, in all of those journeys, there were pillars of support behind me in the form of colleagues and mentors and managers. I will not absolutely disregard that. That is essential, and they were there. In this particular opportunity, one of my direct reports was my, I would say like a mentor, because she was holding up the mirror as to what do I want. She's a direct report, but yet she played that role of a mirror and said, if you don't ask, how will you know? And so therefore, my second lesson in life was, if you want something, find the courage to ask for it. The worst that can happen is you get no. But so that was the second lesson, which happened for me in 2009. Now coming to my third lesson, lifelong learning. I had made it to a head of audit based on my qualifications in 1997. Right. So here is 1997. I wrote my ACCA exams. I became a qualified ACCA in 2001. And here in 2009, I got my first opportunity as head, and I have not done any further studies. Right. At that time, lifelong learning was still I guess people were very motivated. People were going up for more learning, but it wasn't a very obvious necessity at that time. But I felt very out of depth as a head, because I had not come from that background of internal audit, the traditional, train as an internal auditor, do the CIA exams, etc. So here in 2013, I actually sat for the CIA exams as a head. What I discovered in that particular opportunity was a lot of gaps got filled by the material I got from the CIA. Because I didn't know how to structure the overall plan. I didn't know a lot of the small nitty-gritty things that come from formal learning, I would say, which I got through this. I also at that time got a responsibility for cyber assurance. Okay, now cyber assurance as like a dotted line. So the person was reporting to the IT department, but I had a dotted line to me, and I was like clueless about anything and everything. At that time, I had not done any IT work. So again, I took the opportunity to learn. I actually signed up for the ISACTA's Information Security Manager exams. It's called CSIM. And I wrote those exams in 2012, just to know that I'm not having this conversation, out of depth. So the point is, I think the lesson here is know what you need in the moment. Rather than see what others are doing, there's a need for reflection as to what you need. Now, of course, the new buzzword is the future is purple, because the future is about having both three key acumens, I would say. One is your technical acumen, which they say is the red skill set, right? And then there's the blue acumen, which is your business acumen and your interpersonal acumen, right? So you've got technical, which is your the know-how of internal audit, the know-how of IT audits, all of those aspects. Then you got the business understanding, the sector understanding, all of that aspect. And then you have the interpersonal skills that you need to bring. Now, a person needs to evaluate how purple they are, I think is the point, right? Because against these three segments, how are we doing? Are we technically comfortable? Are we able to have those technical conversations? Are we okay in the IT space? For example, there is no more a person who is a process auditor. So how are the process auditors becoming IT savvy, and how are the IT auditors becoming process savvy? Because everybody is going to become purple, is my take, is my submission. So here is another lesson I had about not being afraid to go back to learning again. And of course, for me, 2013 was a very pivotal year, because in 2013, I also embarked on my coaching journey. Then I studied to be a coach in 2013. I spent about 170 hours in weekend courses, learning the competencies of a coach. I did my neuro-linguistic programming practitioner certification in 2013. So it somehow, maybe as luck would have it, that was a year of absolute learning. My CIA, my coaching, and my NLP all happened in 1 year. Maybe, the stars are aligned in some ways. And then I hadn't done much after that until 2021, when I went back into, refining my coaching competencies again. So the point is, embracing the ability to do lifelong learning is very important. Now, coming to the next one. Another very important thing happened to me in 2013. My introduction to coaching also told me that, Bhavani, look, are you happy with your role, with your family, with everything that's happening? Because no point, every morning I used to wake up in the morning. I had a role in London. I stayed outside London. 6:20 in the morning, I caught the train to get to London for an 8 o'clock start. I mean, I left an 8-month-old baby at home, and that was how 8-month-old or 1.5-year-old baby at home, and that was how life was. And it took a bit of awareness to be willing to assess and question whether I was happy, my husband was happy, we were all happy. And that assessment, which I think we don't do enough of, because I said, right, we have life's resources at our expense. If we put all those resources into work, then when is the time to assess whether we are in sync with our life's goals? And this assessment that happened to me in 2013 led me to decide, and me and my husband to decide to leave London and come to Bangalore. So that's 2013 is what got me here. March 2013, I still remember, we booked a hotel room. We put, we said this is the day, the weekend we're going to decide this. And we decided that weekend, in fact. We called all our family members and said, we're coming. 9 months, no, not even 9 months, 8 months later, we were on a plane to Bangalore, taking with us 3 young children, leaving behind two elder children. So it was a big decision to make. But I think it's important, because you don't want to look back and say, "Hare yaar, I've missed some opportunities." So that's the other thing. I think it's important at any point, whether you are a new auditor, you are a middle manager, you are an aspiring leader, or you're already a head of audit, it's essential to assess whether work and life are in balance or in sync. The lesson for me was a bit late in life, I would say. I wish I had this opportunity earlier, but I have to thank some very, a very important colleague who in 2018 helped me do some mirror reflections. Somebody needs to have the guts to tell you, hey, Bhavani, do you know you come across like this? Right? It takes a lot of courage in another person to be willing to tell you that, do you realize you come across like this? And I think that mirrored reflection that happened to me then, I was not a very reflective person. I was kind of just going on life, very outward focused. And so in the absence of inner reflection, you need some courageous soul to come and do this mirror reflection by holding up the mirror. And I went through an entire journey of, how do I say, except first having, denial, acceptance, reflection, change on how I would like to be as a leader. I would very candidly say that at one point I was very much about how do others perceive me. But actually, and others mean not my inner circle, the outer circle. But actually what's most important is how my inner circle is perceiving me. And that's what this mirror reflection helped me do. And I'm still on that journey. I still make mistakes. But the point is that was a pivotal point in which to gain a skill set of wanting to look internally. So sometimes life brings such important people in your life who help. And I wish we all could realize their existence. Sometimes we don't know they are doing it until if it's done subtly. Only when it's done very visibly do we realize it's happening, right? So that's one more lesson which I cannot, I'm ever grateful for, which then leads to inner reflection, because you now know the power of reflection. I think the other important lesson I learned in life is the need to do inner reflection, the need to be able to say, did you really mean to cause harm? Did you really mean to say that? When your action outward doesn't settle nicely with others, how much do you beat yourself up internally for that action? Either it's teaching you a new lesson and you have to do some change, course correction, because we are all, internal audit is all about interpersonal relationships. There's nothing that is not interpersonal about internal audit, right? It's all about interacting with stakeholders, with your team, with your seniors, with very senior board members, how you laugh, how you speak, how you say things, all are literally being scrutinized in the moment. So if somebody says, Bhavani, why did you say that? You need to ask yourself, do you beat yourself up? Do you learn from it? Or do you say, maybe it's their perception and I was very, well intended in my action. So that's a very important process, I think. There are days when I've done it and I thought I was in the right track, but more reflection allows you to think, no, actually, maybe you can see why somebody may perceive those actions as, not in the best intent. And then you keep moving on. But I think a very, very important skill set today, because and especially our youngsters, they are being thrown into conversations with senior people very, very early. There's fear in having those conversations. So how do you use this method to kind of label that fear and then address that fear, right? I think that's very important. The other thing which I learned during pandemic, actually I should have learned it a long time ago again, but more happened during this last 2 years, is how when things like in the pandemic situation, everybody's sitting at home and people are using that time available to build skill sets and embrace technology, and technology had to be embraced even for those who didn't want it. And the ability to allow others to lead through innovation and through suggestions. Even junior people have ideas. You don't need to have all the answers or all the ideas, I think is the lesson. Sometimes you feel you need to be giving the direction and answers. I think this lesson should have come much earlier to me, but maybe not it did not, is to say that others have the answers. And so let them be and accept those answers as they are. That's, on hindsight today, I would have I can say I've accepted them, but maybe in that moment, there was a lot of reflection. Why didn't I think of that first? Kind of reflection. But I think it's important to acknowledge that also. That's also part of our development as auditors. Because there's going to be much more new technology coming in. Somebody else is going to be talking about it before you. That's my take in this situation. And therefore, better to be happy and willing to learn to follow and make peace with that. I think that's a very important part. In fact, that's a saying by Aristotle, those who cannot follow cannot lead. Simple, right? So, and then the last one, which happened in 2022, which is now, is this pivot. And I'm seeing many youngsters pivoting, but I'm probably talking about it at a more mature state in life, where after illustrious and successful career in audit, is it time to think of something else? And this is what happened to me when I had this itch of getting back to coaching so badly that I said, find the courage. And again, there are people who back you up. There are well-wishers. There are, how do I say, God-sent human beings that literally hold that net, that say, go for it, you can do it, kind of thing. And I've been very blessed to have such people who have just pushed me along, inch by inch, saying, don't lose faith so soon. And I think that's what led to asking for it, and then that becoming a reality. And now I'm in this new journey, which started only a month or so ago. And that brings me to 2022 and today. So I don't know how much time I have, Deepji. Can I take a few more minutes?
Sure. Why not, please?
Right. So I come to the point of life resources. We only, the things that we have that we must manage, and which is given almost equally, is time to all, right? Time is our the most scarce resource is time. Money, of course, God has blessed us with different degrees of money, but I think energy is also something that can be managed, almost given equally to all of us. So the question that we have to ask at the end of the day is, how accountable are we for how we've used these resources? How much of these precious resources have I put towards my career only at the expense of other things? Because there is no concept of career and life being separate. So if you put all these limited resources, all your time, all your energy into work, then what will happen to life? Because these resources need to be expensed in a balanced manner. That's my take. And how one person expenses it cannot be the same for another. And that's another important recognition, because I think when we all operate in teams and we watch each other and we see somebody getting recognition for putting in long hours, etc., doesn't mean the answer is the same for others. That's my learning, I guess. I've seen even in my early UK days, people sitting till 8 o'clock. When the partner leaves, they leave, and I'm like, I can't. I've got a kid at home. I've got to go, right? So you can't help it that if you have children at home or whatever reason. I've had colleagues who have pursued professional sports, who have to have left work on time, and acknowledge what they are going to get or don't get because of it. So that's the other aspect. Now, the point is, with all these limited resources, which path are we taking to our purple future as we stand today? So that's the question I think I'd like to ask auditors. I'm asking myself also, which path, because there are so many paths to, and the fact that no one path is the right path for anybody. Even the chosen path will have bumps and things like that. And do we have the capability to navigate those bumps? And most importantly, is that somebody else's path is not your path. I think these are two most important recognition, because I sometimes wonder, and I wish maybe I'll interview some of those people who have comma after comma after comma of certificates, because I want to know how has that changed the achievement of life's goals, by putting so much effort into learning one after the other. there must be a reason. There must be an intent that maybe it will make a difference. And then I want to ask those who have never done anything for the last 15 years, what are you thinking, right? Because these are the gaps I have in my mind about people's direction and action taking. But the point I'm saying is there is no single path. And what point I want to make here is that we always look at what is affecting us the most right now. So when we look at our careers as auditors, we think, oh my God, there's new emerging technology. I'm going into a new business sector. I need to learn about that. I need to learn audit skills. I need to do my CIA exams. I need to develop domain expertise. That's where you get premium pricing. Then there's all these other things that people are talking about, which is emotional intelligence and all of that. And then we spend all our time working on these. Right? I mean, you can spend a lifetime developing these and you will still never get there. So is this the place to start? Is the question I want to ask. Because I think a lot of people jump into addressing this layer of life first. When it comes to career advancement, they address this area of life and don't take a step back and look at life fully first. My submission is that the direction that we should be taking is actually start with life. Start with life. Do you really, are you happy with where you are investing your resources? Are you happy with the amount of time put into relationships? Are you happy with the amount of time put into health, fitness, career? Take that big picture angle first. Then you know what is the available resources to build the second layer of life's requirements. And I think an easier direction is not to jump straight into learning new things. An easier direction is to first know where life is heading. What is your 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan? Then work on whatever how do I want to be as a person? And that's where the attributes come in, right? Is there some attributes I want to develop? Qualities, mindset. Is there a new mindset I want to develop? Do I want to embrace growth mindset? Do I, and all of those things, that takes work too. Which means it may require you to attend some training, it may require you to read some books. Do you have time to read the books that give you the new attributes you want in life? Because the point is, if you develop these attributes, then learning the competencies become easy. It's not a slog anymore. If you learn attributes on how to manage your time and how to the growth mindset, where failure is not failure, it's just a learning opportunity. All those kind of mindsets that come under attributes make competency learning much easier. So my thought process is, you look at what life requires from you, then look at where your resources are available, then look at life's attributes, and then look at competencies. And I think if auditors who are now in this rush game to develop themselves even more to be competitive, can look at life in this way and not bottom up. Not learn all the skill sets, then hope for a job offering, that then learn the attributes and then look after life. Okay, I got my job now let me look at life. Perhaps an introspection in the reverse order could make us much more resourceful about the decisions we make. That's one point. Just 2 more slides. I have come to realize as part of my own journey that everything starts with awareness. Change has to start with awareness. No awareness, no change. Because only when you are aware that something is missing or something is not there, will you even be able to start the journey of changing yourself from here to there. And therefore, it starts with awareness. Then you have to have intent. Okay, I've got this gap in my life right now. What is my intent? Do I want to become a fitter person? Do I want to become a more competent automation person, or whatever it might be, right? Intent, then exploration. Where and how do I spend my resources? With whom do I learn? With where do I spend my money? How much money should I spend? So there's awareness, there's intent, then there's exploration, then there's action, that you actually do the thing you decided to do. And then there's reflection. Did it really give me the result I wanted? Now it's very straightforward, but sometimes, we go straight to action. we hear somebody else has done it and we go straight to action. And this 5-stage process, I think, really helps to own the action. So that even if your action doesn't give you the result you need, you reflect and you have a new awareness. I did this course, it didn't make a difference. So I reflect, I have new awareness and I have new intent. and then the cycle continues. But there's no disappointment, because it's a very owned journey, as opposed to I fell into this journey kind of thing, right? I'm going to admit I'm work in progress. I love this quote by Barbara Streisand. I think we are all work in progress. There's a very famous quote that life is all about being and becoming, but never reaching. So if you are always becoming, then the end is only when you die. So therefore, we're always work in progress, and that's part of this whole reflection and learning process. Why did I take up coaching? I took up coaching because of this is not the reason, but this actually encapsulates a very important reason why coaching is important, is that, like I said, there is no single path for a person. So there are no books and there are no classes, or there's no mentor out there who can give you your path. There is a lot of sources of awareness. A mentor is great for helping you think and give you answers of their experience. Training and books and all of those resources out there are great for raising awareness, which is that first stage. But the path that you take, the intent that you develop for yourself, the exploration of what's already there in your mind, comes quite effectively through a coaching conversation. I have been through several great coaching conversations. I go through them every day because as a coach, I also work with other coaches regularly. We coach each other. We bring real topics. And so I use this as a very important reflective space where I can just say, look, this is what's going on for me. I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, and reflect. And they ask great questions, which draws from inside me the answers that are already there. And out comes a new path for me, a new awareness and a new action, which then kind of continues that journey of growth. So why coaching? That's the reason. Because I truly believe that no amount of books you read or no amount of classes you go for will give you your path to success. You need some reflection space. Some can reflect with their colleagues, some can reflect with their managers, even with their family members. But if you want a neutral, non-judgmental space, then I think coaching is quite effective for that. So that's my reason. And my final thoughts are, whatever makes you uncomfortable is your biggest opportunity for growth. And I leave it with that statement because I think that's an extremely powerful statement to reflect on. I'm done, Deepji and Satish.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Satish.
So
Please.
yeah, super, Bhavani. I think the way I would look at it. Would you mind closing up the presentation?
Sure.
Then I think it'll be a little better.
Yes, I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the way I look at this, Bhavani, is that this presentation has definitely been something very different. And I'm saying this not because I'm talking to you right as of now. I was thinking about it myself. If I have to get something from this presentation, I need to look at it more than once. And that's the beauty of this, like we always say, if you read the Bhagavad Gita the first time and the second time and the third time and the 100th time, you'll get some different interpretation. And I think that's the way I don't know whether you structured this deliberately or whether this just was an accident, but I can definitely say that if somebody needs to draw lessons from this, and that's why I'm saying this right up front, that if we need to get lessons from this, I think we need to hear your session, particularly your session, more than once. This is a caveat from my side, but definitely learned, there are many different aspects that you brought out that I will of course take in the last bit. My question is about 2013. It seems to be a very, very big, significant, great, challenging, changing path for you, but we'll keep 2013 maybe for the astrologers to ask you some questions. Let me come down to this thing that, when in 2013 again, but I'll talk about your CIA. And as a head of a function, you actually attempted this exam. And I'm sure in the audience, whenever people log in, there will be many people who are heads of audits or holding senior position in audit departments, want to pursue the CI exam. And many times this thought comes in the mind, I'm doing so well in my job. And if I don't pass this exam, and there's this junior guy in the department or in some other company, and he's a dud. And if that guy passes, what's the world going to think about me? Forget the world. What am I going to think of myself? So what's your take on that?
Very good question. So in fact, when the CIA challenge exam came, I was actually reflecting on thinking, thank God I did the 3 papers. I that would have petrified me to do the entire thing in one exam.
Part, yeah.
But that having said, 2 parts. Okay, passing an exam is just a point. It's just a point, right? What is really important is what you learn. Number one, I learned a lot. I'm not kidding. In fact, the hardest paper is the paper that the juniors will find very easy, which is the 3rd paper on all the complex processes. Okay, how to do a stock calculation, stock value calculation. I actually struggle. The number, the answers are so close in your exam because you've left it for so long. You've not been in the grind. But what I learned a lot from is the role of a CAE. The reflection of actually I'm not doing what the IA is suggesting should be done, and where is the gap? Why am I not in that space? Because a lot of things you fall into a company, and then that company's existing practices continue, and you don't challenge it because that's how it is, until you realize that there is a more appropriate, correct way of how it should be, and then you feel discomfort. And then you have 2 choices. You either fix the discomfort, or if you can't fix the discomfort, you choose to leave or you accept it, right? The point is knowing that you are not operating how the IA recommended CIA role or Chief Internal Auditor role is itself a big learning, right? And that for me was the first thing. Where's my charter at that time? I was like, where's the charter? Am I having enough dialogue with the audit committee chair as per the recommendations of the IA, right? I started asking myself all these questions. Today, my role may be slightly different. I may not have all the IA aspects there. Maybe I have some part of it, but that's okay. You basically reflect, accept, or change, right? That's how it is. So the point is to a head senior leader already, take the learning first. That's your first reward. That is 90% of the reward. 10% passing, don't tell anybody till you pass. That's it. Why do you need to reveal it's how many times you attempt, who really cares? And it's not because you are not capable, it's because we don't have the muscle to take tests anymore. It's a different kind of muscle, right? Taking an exam is not a reflection of competency or capability. Taking an exam itself is a style. It's a skill set. It's a different mental frame of mind. And if you've not done it for a long time, it's difficult. In fact, I have to take an exam soon. There's one exam in coaching I have to take. Last night I got to realize the exam date is coming, and I'm sure in a very different frame of mind than I was much younger as I was taking an exam. So it does happen. Now the question is, what is your backup plan, etc., etc. Right? Nothing wrong in taking the exam again, because you learn more by revising twice, I guess, is the other way.
True. In fact, they say God sees the intent, people see the results. That's the fortunate or unfortunate part of life.
Exactly.
Yeah, Deepji.
I think a wonderful presentation, Bhavani. As you are going through the slides, so many thoughts of life over the last 35 years, after your college, you were thinking about, in your personal life, in your professional life, and you have gone through all that. Again, I'm reminded of a book, I read last year, because I was in the panel, when 2 professionals wrote a book, CFO Niti. So there are top 5 CFOs from the country, including, I think, Satish, spoke about Larsen & Toubro. And they had a conversations with the CFO, and they published a book, CFO Niti, which came out last year. And all of them, I read through that book because I was on that panel. So, and all of them said, in hindsight, that, they wanted good family life and work balance, right? But they all said that after they have achieved whatever they could at their life in the professional life, so they maybe missed out something in the early life. So when you have put out a slide, which sums up what a young professional should be doing, you talked about looking at life first, then attributes, and then competencies to decide where you want to go in your professional life and how much time, balance, everything you want to do. Now it sounds, as Satish said, it sounds so good, like Bhagavad Gita, to read and read again and then, try to decipher it. But for a young professional, fresh out of college, or maybe a fresh, graduated doing a star, who wants to become a star player, become a chief auditor, and you are there at the profession at the young level. How does that professional decipher all this? because it's nice to, talk about it and write about it after you have gained wisdom for 15, 20, 30 years and say that this is how you should do. But for that young professional, what's your advice? How should they ensure what they do? Because most of them would feel that certifications, putting it long hours would make them achieve something in life. So
Great question, and I completely agree. And I do believe they need to put in the hours and do the learning and all of that. So the question is, where are you putting in those hours and the learning? Because I feel sometimes very bad when somebody is 7, 8 years into their career and you look at their resume and they haven't really gained all the kinds of skill sets that and the experiences that a person of an equal number of years. Now, what was the difference in those two people? Now, is it, I can go back and do a kind of a reverse analysis and say that they made these good choices. But if I were to create that choice proactively, right? Did a person follow the money at the expense of the experience? Right. And I see this pattern happening. I do understand there is a need of the hour. I need to earn money right now. I have family to pay for, but for how long? Have a goal. If money is the need of the hour, have a goal, because the moment you become dependent on that high salary at the expense of great experience, your life is dependent on that salary. But the lack of experience limits your growth, if that makes sense, right? Because if you start with the grind, the people who did the grind work and got low salary in the beginning, today are somewhere else because the experience was so varied. They touched everything, they did everything. Today they look back and they say, I've done everything and I'm in a senior position. The person who went into a job that said, only do these 5 things, I pay you a lot of money, right? What will they do after 5 years and 10 years?
Right.
Now, I shouldn't be an interviewer asking them that question. They should be asking themselves that question and saying, when is the time to change track? At what cost am I pursuing this money right now? Because can they see that future, that 30 lakh, 40 lakhs, 1 crore salary with what they are doing right now?
Right.
That's the ambition. I mean, let's assume for a moment that, if you take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your physical needs are very important. Your house, enough money, food, shelter, of course it's important, but at what cost?
Right.
That's the question I would like to put forward.
Okay.
So Bhavani, the question that I have is, and I'm sure that the answer that you give will help the readers to connect it with whatever they want to do in life. You are a great auditor. Let's say you transitioned into becoming a great auditor, but you are a great auditor now and you're doing audit for one of the best companies in India. Okay. Now you've got into this new line of coaching, which you want to take it as your future path. What part of your auditing skills has helped you, is helping you, and you propose to be helped in your assignments or in your career path of coaching?
Great question. So my intended segment of people to work with, although my mentors keep saying, work with finance professionals, I'm quite keen to work with auditors. And I believe that the world has enough auditors that I will have enough work, right? So the question is, how big do you cast your net? Too big a net, nobody finds you. Too small a net, you may never get work. But I think the fraternity I love, which is the audit fraternity, which needs a lot of interpersonal development and skill and investment, will benefit from my own experience in the same field. That's one take, right? And I think the challenges of going into a senior conversation, all of those things that you need to do, if I can bring my own experiences, nothing like it to help that segment. But the other side also is that the business knowledge you gain as an auditor. Let's assume you don't want to work with the audit fraternity and you want to work with other people. Everybody is working. Everybody's kind of got a professional role and a personal role, and the professional challenges that they go through could be business related. I have my profit targets. I'm struggling with that. that could become a topic for coaching. Now, if you have a strong business acumen gained from being an auditor, which is a privileged position when you get the bird's eye view of an organization, right? Can be brought into those conversations and leveraged when you are coaching any professional, because those could become topics for conversations as well. So I think it's a win-win position. I always tell people it's a privilege to be an auditor because you get to see the company from inside and from the top. I mean, very few people have that privileged position to see it that way.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, Devji.
One other question is, we're talking about Bhavani, a lot of certifications. Certifications do lead one person to get that knowledge. Though you may say what is the intent is there, and you may pass or not pass or whatever it is, but you get that knowledge. But when we talk about lifelong learning, is it necessary to go after certifications? Because you can also get that knowledge without the certifications. In fact, some of the students may try to just get the certification without really applying themselves to get the knowledge. Even some very senior people, you talk to Sadhguru ji, or a lot of senior people have said that you should have lifelong learning, but you need not go to college also. So it all depends. So what's your take on that? Because people sometimes tom a lot of certifications, saying I've got this 10 certifications, I've got this 5 certifications, but there's so much of energy spent on that and so on.
I got it. My answer may not be a popular one, but I'll say it anyway. I think certifications are important to get you into the door of your whichever stage in life you are. That's it. I think it helps in opening your awareness as one activity, but and then it gets you into the door. Now, after that, any top up has a limited value add, in my view, my take, right? So if you're entering into analytics, you're already a CIA and you're entering into analytics, do it, because it gives you that credibility. Two things, that having it gives you some comfort that I've learned the skill, but how many will you do? Will you do 10? Because there's endless, right? If you see, there's every single, like in medical line, you have this subspecialization. Even within analytics, you have subspecialization, but do you really need it unless you believe that is your line of work? If you're going to be only going to work with R as a language for your analytics, and you're going to be the world's best R programmer, then maybe do advanced R language. But if you are just entering it, isn't the knowledge sufficient to work with an R developer or a programmer, right? So that's the kind of point. And then I'm talking purely technical. But what about the other skill sets? Where's the time to implement the learning if you keep going after certification, right? You need to put it to practice. You need to learn from the mistakes that you make. You need to see where you went wrong, and then that learning is more valuable than the kind of classroom or the online learning that you get. So for me, it's important to get into the door. So for example, after a long time, I'm kind of pursuing my formalized credentialing with the International Coaching Federation, which is the body that regulates coaching worldwide, right? Or sets industry standards, a bit like the IIA. Now I need it because I'm pivoting into a new role, right? So I need that because I need to build my credibility. But after a few years, do I keep on adding? I think the knowledge is important, not the certificate. So that's my take.
I think really great. Thank you very much for that answer, because that again, fascinates a lot of youngsters who come in and talk about, whether these certifications will help or not help, and whether I should have all three, or, when you talk to some youngsters and they'll say, I need the CIA, I need the CFE, I need the CISA, or, should I go for only CISA, whether it will really, help me, propel myself into, further my career or not. And so
my take is, if you're an IT auditor and haven't done CISA, ask yourself why, right? If you are a fraud examiner and haven't done CFE, ask yourself why. If you are an internal auditor and haven't done CIA, ask yourself why. That's it. Because you need something beyond your first qualification. But do you keep going for all three? Then you will be a jack of all trades to some degree, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think wonderful, Bhavani. Satish.
So today, of course, the summary is going to become difficult because it's like what I said, the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know how much of it I would really be able to uh, how much of it I really grasped in the first take. I'm going to hear this video again and again to kind of get more learnings, at least for myself. So here goes. This will be my best attempt, as always. But I think the what Bhavani you really brought out is that there's a huge demand for differentiated skills. Okay, and whether there is a demand or not, that's a separate story. But I guess the learning is that we must have something different for us to get called out for whatever promotion, increment, job opportunity, moving. I think the differentiation aspect of it is something that really is coming out. It came out well in your presentation. Keep asking yourself what makes you happy, and most importantly, not only what makes you happy, but when have you reached that destination? It just can't go on and on and on and on and say that I'm getting happier and happier and happier and happier, and probably not really realizing whether that is really bringing you happiness in the first place.
Right.
So that's a good idea. Your question, in fact, was led me to introspect so much. Is that what's your next step? What's your next step? And as I was hearing that whatever you talked about when you showed up that slide, I was thinking that I should have met Bhavani, and I have also taken a couple of big decisions in the last 1 year, and I wish I had met Bhavani before. And but I'm happy to say that at least I have answers for these 4 questions, and it at least directionally I think I'm right, and I know I'm right. So that at least had brought me some process to my very vague method of thinking, and I must thank you for that, Bhavani. Don't send me a bill. Uh, you also said that you need to know the unknowns, in whatever measure you can. You know, to manage transition, and that's one more aspect I think in the last 1 year has affected me, in the sense it is not. I'm not saying affected me negatively, but I'm saying that I keep myself always conscious that this transition, whatever transition, it needs to be managed. And I think this was a straight hit into my heart when you were talking about managing transitions. And forget about me, I'm not talking about the lessons I got, but I think from a general perspective, the important lesson is that whatever transition, whether you change a job, whether you move to a new area, whether you're getting a promotion, whatever, you must be able to, your boss changes for that matter, these transitions you need to understand, and we need to take care of it. Ask for what you need, whether it's help, support, guidance, and advice. Keep asking for it, and only when you ask, you might or might not get it. The worst case is you might not get it, but you're no better off or worse than what you were before. Two very important lines that you said is, one, have somebody show you the mirror all the time, and the other thing was, hold the net. And that's another very beautiful line. You called it out when you were talking about considering a pivot. And that's when you said that you need somebody to actually hold a net. 2013, I already said in the first beginning, I think 2013 was a special year. 13 is a very special number for me because that happens to be my birthday. And it's an unlucky number for many people, but anyway, but good that you remember these phases of life where something very significant happens, uh, and you reflect upon that, and you wish that the calendar, the page never turned in that calendar year, and it remained like that. But life has to move on, as we all know, and that I think was a beautiful aspect. One other aspect you spoke about is that internal auditors get thrown, and to quote you, thrown into discussions with senior management. And I think that's a very perfect way of saying it. We say that you get this opportunity to discuss. It's not an opportunity. Actually, there is, for want of anything else, you just say, "Arey, bake, jaake discuss karo yaar." Possibly. So they do get chances, and even if it's not a formal this thing, many times you meet them in the passage, and the CEO asks you, "Arey, how's the audit going on? Everything is okay or not?" And you need to give the junior guy needs to give a response. So it's a good thing to learn, and always be prepared. Even as a junior, you never know what next step will come. So be prepared for this aspect. I have to turn the page because there's so many more lessons that really came about. Um, of course, you talked about how to get good to great and how to stand out. I think that was an extra 2 words that really impacted me. Take care of your time, money, energy, and everything else. So whatever is relevant to you is what you should take. You also talked about which path to take. There was a poem also that there were two roads, and if I took the path less trodden by, and that made the difference. I mean, so there is so much of things that's why I said that it's so difficult to really comprehend, or not to comprehend. Sorry, that's the wrong word. I didn't mean comprehend. What I mean is that to get the actual lesson, I think it needs a couple of more iterations. So this is all that, I mean, you also gave a lot of quotes, which is there for everybody to see when the slide shows up. It has been what can I say? It has been a very lovely learning session, and auditors are capable of doing this. And you are a live demonstration, Bhavani, and really, really, really good. It must have been a great experience. It is a great experience heading audit for a company like Infosys, where great things happen in the company. Great people are there to work with you. Great people are there to support you, guide you. Don't worry about mistakes. Move on with life. Achieve. Get results. Be result oriented. Have a life balance. Be a good human being first. Then be a good auditor, editor, accountant, or what have you. So, or a good programmer, to use your language. So I think that's it. That's my very best attempt I can do to kind of summarize. And I know I have not done a full justice to the summary, because I myself have not been able to pick up all the lessons that you probably intended to give all of us. So that's it. Dibji, if you need to add anything, please.
I think it has been a different kind of presentation. So I'm still trying to grasp everything in. Yeah. But two things I remembered, because I've undergone the Peter Drucker course at Claremont Graduate University, spent years studying the 45 books, reading the 45 books of Peter Drucker, and two things he said, which, the thoughts I would like to share, after looking at Bhavani's presentation and the way she spoke. Peter Drucker talked about that at the age of 40, you need to think about your second life. So there's a book, Second Life, that after 55, 60, what do you want to do? Because you still want to be active, because you're still young. So that's the second life. And number two, he talked about that early on in your career, early on when you begin, maybe after a few years, you need to write down in 2-3 lines, what you would like to be remembered for. So if you can put that down, then the journey which you take throughout your life will be according to that mission, which you have put down, what you would like to be remembered for. And Bhavani, trust me, it's very difficult to put down in 2 or 3 lines what you would like to be remembered for. So, but it was an excellent presentation, wonderful presentation. Thank you very much for being with us and for sharing your thoughts, Bhavani.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bhavani. Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you, Satish, for wonderfully summing it up. So difficult.
Very nicely.